Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are taking a really deep dive into the monumental life, the completely groundbreaking career, and of course, the heavily debated legacy of the man known all over the world as the King of Pop. We're talking about Michael Jackson. This is the story of an absolutely unprecedented global influence, someone who literally transformed music, dance, fashion, and visual media forever. But, it's also a story marked by intense public scrutiny. So let's get right into it and explore exactly how one person managed to completely reshape global pop culture. Okay, let's dive into this by looking at a number that is honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around: 500 million. That is the estimated number of records Michael Jackson sold worldwide over the course of his career. 500 million records. This figure instantly establishes the sheer, undeniable scale of his fame. He wasn't just a popular musician, right? He was a global phenomenon, and his reach touched nearly every single corner of the planet. To truly understand how this all happened, we're going to follow his journey today. We'll start with his early life in the Jackson 5, move into his era as a solo superstar, look at those iconic dance moves and records, discuss the philanthropy and controversies, and finally, his death and global legacy. Starting right off with Section 1, Early Life and the Jackson 5. So, born in Gary, Indiana, Michael was actually the eighth of 10 children. And under his dad's management, he didn't just casually participate in the family band, he became a literal child prodigy. I mean, his incredibly powerful voice and just this natural electric stage presence quickly made him the undeniable star and lead singer of the Jackson 5. This led straight into massive cultural anthems like I Want You Back, ABC, I'll Be There, and The Love You Save. And these weren't just catchy pop songs. They showcased a really young kid who somehow had the vocal maturity and emotional delivery of a seasoned adult performer. Let's move to part 2 and see how this builds: the solo superstar. By the late 1970s, Michael steps out to forge a solo career, kicking off basically 2 solid decades of uninterrupted dominance. It starts in '79 with Off the Wall. That was his first major solo success, and it brilliantly showed off his ability to blend pop, disco, soul, and funk into huge hits like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. From there, it's just a relentless wave of monumental albums. We get Thriller in '82, Bad in '87, Dangerous in '91, all the way to History in '95. He was, without a doubt, the biggest pop star in the world for an incredibly sustained amount of time. But, okay, we really have to pause and focus specifically on 1982. Thriller. This didn't just break records, it completely changed music history. It became the best-selling album of all time, moving tens of millions of copies worldwide. But the impact goes so far beyond just sales. With legendary tracks like Billie Jean, Beat It, and of course, Thriller, Jackson completely revolutionized the music video. He took them from being these simple little promotional clips and turned them into highly produced, big-budget short films. And crucially, the massive popularity of these videos helped shatter the racial barriers that existed on MTV at the time, which fundamentally transformed the entire music industry. All right, moving on to Section 3, Dance Moves and Records. To truly get Michael Jackson, you have to realize he wasn't just a singer. His physical artistry was every bit as important to his global appeal as his vocal abilities. We're talking major visual innovations here. The robot dance, that crazy, mind-bending anti-gravity lean, the toe stand. He didn't just sing a song, he physically embodied it. He created this entire visual language that audiences around the world could understand and try to copy, no matter what language they actually spoke. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of that physical performance. The moonwalk. This quickly became one of the most recognizable dance moves in human history. And what's fascinating is how a single television moment, his performance during a 1983 TV special, cemented this move as his absolute visual trademark. In just an instant, that backwards glide totally defined a generation of dance. Naturally, all these artistic achievements translated into some truly staggering official metrics. 13 Grammy Awards, 13 Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles, and being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame not just once, but twice. These figures officially cement his status as one of the most awarded artists in the entire history of recorded music. Which brings us to Section 4, Philanthropy and Controversies. Now, what's really interesting here is the incredibly complex duality of his life off the stage. On one hand, you have his massive generosity. Reports estimate Jackson donated hundreds of millions of dollars to dozens of charitable organizations, heavily supporting children's welfare, education, healthcare, and disaster relief. Yet, right alongside that, there was intense, unrelenting public scrutiny. This focused on things like his multiple cosmetic surgeries, the very visible changes in his appearance, his private lifestyle at the Neverland Ranch estate, and his relationships with the children and families who visited him there. And this public scrutiny eventually culminated in severe legal challenges. Impartially speaking, the facts are that in 1993, Jackson faced child sexual abuse allegations. This resulted in a civil settlement, but no criminal conviction. Then, years later, in 2005, he actually stood trial on additional charges and was ultimately acquitted on all counts by a jury. Regardless of the legal outcomes, it's just a factual reality that these allegations remain a major, heavily debated part of public discussions regarding his legacy today. And that brings us to our final section, death and global legacy. The final chapter of Michael Jackson's life came to an abrupt and just deeply tragic end while he was in Los Angeles. He was gearing up for what was supposed to be this massive comeback, but on June 25, 2009, at only 50 years old, Michael passed away. The cause of death was acute propofol intoxication administered by his personal physician, Conrad Murray, who's later convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Jackson had been rigorously preparing for his This Is It concert series, and the suddenness of his death sent absolute shockwaves across the world. It effectively broke the internet as the news spread, and his memorial service was watched by literally billions of people globally. But as we look at the aftermath of that tragedy, we have to pivot and ask a really essential question. Who did he inspire? What is the actual ripple effect of his artistry on the performers that came after him? So the crucial point is that his influence didn't just stop in the 1980s or 90s. Far from it. Modern icons, think Beyoncé, Bruno Mars, The Weeknd, Usher, Justin Timberlake, they all use Jackson's pioneering music videos, his super precise dance techniques, his elaborate stage productions, and his unique fashion style as a direct blueprint for their own work today. His artistic DNA is completely woven into the very fabric of modern pop music. Which leads us to this really profound summary derived from our sources today. Quote, few artists have had such a massive impact on music, dance, fashion, and global pop culture. Despite the wide and ongoing debate surrounding his personal life, his sheer artistic influence and the entertainment boundaries he completely shattered, those remain absolutely undeniable. He forever altered the landscape of global entertainment. So, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to end our explainer today. How do we reconcile an artist's unmatched global influence with the complex, heavily debated realities of their personal life? It's a massive question, it defines the legacy of the King of Pop, and frankly, it's one that our culture is still trying to answer. Thank you so much for joining me and learning with us today. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.